bringing you inside the USL Championship and League One.
Ball played into the box. There's Tyler Black with a shot and a goal!
Hear from players and coaches to team executives.
Pirelli crossing, settled near the penalty spot, and a shot! Oh! The finish is remarkable! Rebellion!
From the boardroom to the pitch, this is USL All Access.
Welcome, everybody, to a new playoff edition of USL All Access. Happy Tuesday. The regular season is done. We've played all the games. We've got a bracket. We're going to chat about that bracket with our number one seeds represented here in the show. Danny Griffin from Pittsburgh is set to join us, having just won the Players' Shield. Mark Briggs, the head coach at Sacramento, is set to join us. There is no coach's shield, but if there was one, it'd be his. With Devon Kerr and Emmett McConnell at the controls, I'm Mike Watts. Dev, we finally have a bracket. And the good folks at USL put together one of the great hype videos in league history with your voice on it.
You're actually the lead, and I'm just following it up, and that's what you go with?
Right.
Are we the number one seeds? No. Where would you, in terms of what you bring to the table, where would you seed yourself 1 through 8? If you say 12, that's not fair.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm in the Central Conference, and I'm a 14.
We definitely didn't win a conference this year.
No, I don't think so. I thought we did a lot of good work.
You take the 4. You can have home field advantage. You're not as home as much as I am, so you stay home. And I'll take the 5, and I'll come travel on the road. We'll play the 4-5.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it, buddy.
I know.
There's a couple of baseball stadiums here we could play in New York if you're so intrigued.
Baseball? Someone say baseball?
Ah, there we go.
Look at
Slugger
this gem.
Field bat.
Look at that gem. Oh, wow. Oh, you love to see it.
It's becoming a little bit much here. Dev, for one, we do know in terms of hosting the final, that seating priority is by regular season standing. We knew Pittsburgh was going to be the 1. We did find out the 2 and the 3 based on the results of this weekend. It's Sacramento, then Tampa Bay, then the Battery. So the odds that you and I on November 12th will be in the Eastern time zone is actually extraordinarily high now in theory.
Don't tell Sac that. That means you're betting on them to lose.
I'm betting on Pittsburgh to win.
You're betting on Pittsburgh to win. Okay, that's fair. I mean, look, I'll take a Sac-Pittsburgh final. Are you surprised, by the way, that 3 out of the top 4 seeds are in the Eastern Conference?
No, because they had so many more chances to pick up cheap points.
That's fair. That's fair.
Well, and ultimately, like, Las Vegas and Hartford basically canceled each other out.
Here's a better question. Are you more surprised that 3 of the top 4 are in the East or that San Antonio finished in 4th?
See, we're going to get to this in a minute.
Yeah.
How significant that may or may not be for the reigning double winner, it deserves a chat. Before we get to that and we get to the East and how this all broke down, and we're going to talk to Mark Briggs in the second segment. We're going to talk to Danny Griffin in the third segment so that we're hitting all our bases. Dev, in terms of the standings themselves, the Battery remarkably went from truly painfully bad to a number 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. And we've talked about it over the course of this year, and there's a good chance people don't fully comprehend just how significant the turnaround was.
So I don't think people understand, because it's easy to get lost in the noise of, well, there's a new coach and there's a new president and, well, they brought some players with them, and you forget exactly to your point about how bad it was previously, right? And there are a lot of reasons for that. It wasn't the coach, it wasn't the front office or the players or the travel or COVID or injuries. All of that convoluted into one made it really, 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 really poor. And yet, the 3 out of the 4 that we're referencing, the number 4 spot to host the final right now is the Charleston Battery. I mean, incredible. And look, part of it, you have to understand that the ability to have that type of vision is one thing, but to chase it is another. So, you want to go get Trey Muse or Derek Dodson or Mark Segbridge, people that were following him from Memphis, that's one thing. But to keep other guys that were already there, a Tristan Traeger and Augie Williams, to get them to make sure that they want to stay, number one, because of what they experienced, and then number two, get them to buy into everything going forward. I don't know if we can compare it to anything just short of spectacular. Mark Briggs is calling right now, by the way.
Love that for all of us. From 25 points to 59, a 34-point flip. Let's walk you through a couple of results from the Eastern Conference while we have a moment that led to the bracket that we're now at. Miami ultimately falls at Sacramento 1-0. That became a playing game based on the Detroit City result against Pittsburgh earlier in the day, and we discussed that last week. These games were not simultaneous. So 4 wins in a row for Miami. They fall on the last day, ultimately cede the 8th and final playoff position to Detroit. Head-to-head points earned regular season games for those two, tight. Ultimately, Detroit, the 2-1 win back on 9-9 is the difference. It's kind of sad to see Miami go out that way because we talked about the schedule was brutal, and yet they almost did it. They really almost got there.
Yeah, and one part of me goes, well, they deserved it. Well, if they deserved it, they would have gotten more points. Just because they finished stronger didn't mean that they finished the job. It also means that, the equilibrium overall was just kind of, it waxed and waned. That margin, a tiny touch more than Detroit. Do you think there are too many teams in the playoffs?
Probably.
Okay. Keep going.
All right. Dev, let's chat some matchups here. The games will all air on ESPN Plus in the quarterfinal round. In the East, Memphis and Louisville, 6:30 Eastern time, 5:30 Central. That's at AutoZone Park. It's played on the actual floor of an AutoZone, as was joked by the Rowdies fans a couple of years ago. That's the 4-5 game. Half an hour later, Pittsburgh and Detroit will kick off. That's a rematch of the game they played last week. Tampa Bay and Birmingham will match up at 7:30 Eastern. So kicks every half hour. And then on Sunday, the only game in the East to be played, Charleston the 3 against Indy the 6. That's a 4 p.m. Eastern time kick. That's at Patriots Point. First time they've hosted a playoff game away from Blackbaud in Charleston. Dev, let's start with Pittsburgh and Detroit. Pittsburgh won the season series. They won back on the 15th of July, last day of the season, finished 0-0. The all-time history is 4 games, 1-1, 1-1, 2-0, 0-0. 3 draws and 1. Exactly. And it's going to be that game, and that's the only reason I'm worried for Pittsburgh. The only reason. Because there's not going to be a lot to separate.
I'm not worried for them. Not in this game, not in the first round. No, there's not a lot to separate it, and Detroit's going to do that to anyone. But we've said all year long that something feels different about Pittsburgh.
Yep.
And while, again, like I've talked about my affection for the playing style of the Rowdies a little bit more, how it overtakes the argument for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh deserves where they're going to be and the manner in which they've done it. I foresee something else. I see them coming out of the gate and shellacking this team. Maybe the scoreline won't show it. Maybe it's still a 1-0 or a 2-0 or something like that. But to be this good, to dispose of so many amazing teams, and yet probably still not being given the credit that they deserve, I think they're hungry and there's a vengeance to be paid. We're going to ask Danny Griffin about that. I see them throttling in the first round.
Yeah, for me, again, it's not that I think Pittsburgh will in any way be outplayed. It's that when there's usually only one goal that separates, if that,
it's them.
You never know. You never know. I don't think we're calling upsets there. Tampa Bay is hosting Birmingham. This is really intriguing when you look at the history between the two. Birmingham won both games this year, but you're talking April and July.
Yeah.
And the world the Rowdies are in now versus the world they were in then, very, very different.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't the loss to Birmingham Legion back in July, wasn't that Nicky Law's second game? Definitely, second
it was
or
right
first
when
game.
Neil was, right when Neil exited.
100%. Yeah, because he took over. They lost. Yeah, they had that stretch where it was they lost to Birmingham. 2 road games. Yeah, they drew think it was, drew at Indy. Now I'm looking at it. They drew at Indy, and then that's when things started to get better, right? It was Tulsa and Monterey, and they went on that run of theirs. I'm still surprised that we never saw Birmingham really step up again. I don't get it, honestly. Like, I've pleaded my case for them the entirety of the season. They're going to get back on track, and the level that we've seen in Open Cup, and they've just never gotten there. And yet the Rowdies have continuously gotten better and better and better, and with an attack that we've never seen from them. Not in this way. Not goals are one thing, and Guenzati and his 20-plus goals, respectfully catching lightning in a bottle. We all knew that wasn't going to happen again, and it was a great season in 2021, but they didn't score like this. It was all over. You didn't have out-and-out nines like J.J. Williams and the so different profile of player and Cal Jennings and players that, whether it's Connor Antley, right, on the back line, or Aaron Guillen, who's played center back, wing back, left back, he's done everything. Like, they didn't change that much in 21, and yet this team they're chameleons. They're all over the place. I have a bad feeling that they could run away with this real quick.
Yep. Birmingham 3-5-1 last 9 games in the run-in.
Ooh.
And did not score a lot of goals in that time. Battery will play Indy. That's at Patriots Point. That's the Sunday game in the East. Indy leads the series. They won 4-0 at Charleston in a game that was the ultimate throwaway. Charleston had 2 wild stinkers this year. That Indy game and the San Antonio butt whooping.
Yeah.
That was in June, 1-1 draw in Indy on July 12th. Charleston has not beat the Indy 11 since September 2019.
Whoa. How's that in the vault for that stat, buddy?
And
And
to be fair, that was the last time Charleston was remotely this good.
I disagree. 2020 COVID.
Oh, well, but they weren't
remember
the same
that
division.
Hang on, they weren't in the same division, but before you get ahead of yourself, that 2020 COVID Charleston Battery team played the Rowdies 4 times. They beat them 3 times.
Except
the one in the playoffs.
Yeah.
The one where Neil Collins put me in my place.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned 2019 is they did not play in 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very, very different. I love the fact that they beat the Indy 11 of 2019 that were incredibly difficult to play. You remember that?
Went to the Eastern Conference Final. Mm-hmm.
Oh, the opener goal.
Indeed.
OT.
Hope not. Anything to add on that, Dev, or are we flying?
No, we're moving past it. I've got my eyes set on something, and you know that.
Okay. Louisville. Memphis leads the series this year, 101. Louisville knocked Memphis out of the playoffs 2 years ago. That was the beginning of the Pierman turnaround there. Memphis drew at home back on April the 29th. They beat Louisville on the road at Lynn June 10th. Louisville, this is the first time where I actually kind of struggle to see them through. I really do.
I'm not sure what I will say this. If the game was at Louisville, I would feel a lot more comfortable, even with their lack of form. But on the road, coming off the weekend where not only was it bad, and I know they talk about expectations, but it was really a thrashing again. And Lancaster's goal at the end, people are going to look at the scoreline and go, 3-2. Yeah, well, Freddie Kleeman had an own goal in the 10th, 15th minute, whatever it was. The game wasn't close. They've looked a shell of themselves for a long period of time. Silver lining, you get a goal from Cameron Lancaster. That's great. But beyond it, man, whether it's a 3-back, a 4-back, they've had
the individual errors.
It's so many errors, honestly. And, we always look for ways to break down a game. Coaches do as well, but you can only lead a horse to water, right? You can only get so far. And yet it feels like it doesn't matter how they set the team up, whether they're high pressing, whether they're sitting deep, if they're the aggressor on the ball and they've got the brunt of possession, they're always finding these 1 or 2 situations in a game where they just cough up these incredibly poor mistakes.
Yep.
It is the exact opposite of everything that is bred into the DNA of that team. You ever wanted to beat them? You had to go and absolutely destroy yourself to find a way to get a crack in their foundation. Like you were rubble, and then maybe you could squeak through. That's how good it's been.
Yeah, I had someone in the league say, hey, this is when Louisville always turns it on. And I corrected that person. This was
No.
in the last 24 hours. They turn it on around September 1st.
Yeah.
And there's a
End of year.
continuation all the way. It doesn't turn on in the playoffs. They don't lose in September and October previously.
No, they don't show up in the playoffs and go, oh, okay, now it's important. If anything, You're right. It's the exact opposite. It's, oh, we've struggled. We've dealt with this. But now it's game time. Now we know exactly how to fight. I mean, that was a team. Remember last year? They stumbled into the final because they were just dragging lifeless bodies with them. But there was the belief that they could get it done. I haven't seen that belief in a long time for them.
Not recently. Let's chat about the Western quarterfinals. Mark Briggs is going to join us in a moment. His Sacramento Republic. We'll see New Mexico. They're the 8th seed. That's in Sacramento. That's at 10 Eastern time, 7 Pacific kick on Saturday. An hour before that, San Antonio will host Colorado Springs in the 4-5 game. Orange County will play the late game on Saturday night against number 7 seed El Paso at 10:30. Congrats to them, by the way. New 10-year deal. They're at the champ for the long term, which is great. And we also could comment on the board in Orange County that was involved in that. But you need to go back to a previous episode, and you can hear Devon do a total deconstruction. Sunday, by the way, San Diego, bury them with the cup, ? They're the 3. They'll host Phoenix the 6. We get one last dip at that. All right, Dev, let's rip through it. Sacramento does secure the number 2 overall seed with the win over Miami. So if Pittsburgh loses, Devon and I are going to Sacramento in theory. Oakland did not win a game in the last 9. They were in 5th, and they missed the playoffs. El Paso eliminates them on the last day with a 2-1 win. New Mexico, 4-1 win on Friday night against Memphis to get in as well. And so the field did not change on the last day out west outside of seeding. With that in mind, Sacramento, New Mexico won the game back in July. They drew on the 20th of September. And Dev?
I'm scared for them.
Ones are never safe.
I'm scared for this team, honestly. And I'm not more scared for the 0-0 than I was the 3-0. That 3-0, for people that don't know, that was the walking wounded for Sacramento Republic. Roro wasn't there. Jack Kerr wasn't there. Help me, the 9. Herrera wasn't there.
Yep.
They were all beat up back in that game. So I was less concerned about it. Also, new coach had come in. You get this injection of life and a different style of play. You and I had them for national television. We broke it down, how they had switched this advancing motions, forward-facing, so much more positivity when it came to the thought processes on the field. They won 3-0. I thought it was a throwaway game. The 0-0 got me because they went into Heart Health, which I still want to call it Papa Murphy's Park, by the way. It always will be. It was a stretch of games that started for me where they had come off the loss to Birmingham and they were struggling. It was, Oakland had beaten them. Charleston had beaten them. All of a sudden, Birmingham, and I'm going, oh, this is going to be a problem. They beat Indy. When they went into Sac, I was like, well, this is never going to happen. And then all of a sudden, they've got 4 wins in their final 6 and only 1 loss, which was the 2-1 against Pittsburgh. That was a really tight game. Sac did not look good in that game. They looked uncomfortable. New Mexico did enough. And we are going to talk to Mark Briggs. But it does scare me because the overall DNA of that team is about being the aggressor. It's about their press. It's about the passion that they bring. They can play the ball, put it on the deck. They're super, super physical. And to me, that's been pushed to the side a little bit. I'm gonna remove the statistics behind it and who they've played. We're gonna save that as a question for Mark Briggs. But this game probably scares me the most out of any game in the Western Conference in terms of an upset.
Yep. How about Orange County and El Paso? Orange County, we mentioned it last week. Last place, I said, hey, maybe they could get the 2 seed. They do get the 2 seed. They could potentially host 2 playoff games. Really unique situation here. They've only in 8 games ever beaten El Paso once, September 2019. Just like the aforementioned Charleston Indy series history. Dev, that in mind, El Paso won in April. They drew at Orange County in September, and now they're headed back to SoCal.
Kind of funny how they've shifted their style too, right?
Yep.
For a team that was so particular about how they wanted to play, and all of a sudden they've tweaked their style. Orange County's doing well for themselves. I would actually say the wings in this game are probably the most interesting to me, and how you go about attacking that. We've constantly said that the success that has been for Orange County is because they have this idea of how they want to play, and that had changed and jumped multiple times under Richard, and I don't see that happening anymore, which is why I've seen the success. But I do wonder, as the game comes wide, how much does El Paso continue to push the limits outside? Because to me, that's where they want the game to be played in this match. Because I think that benefits them more. If they win that battle, they do have a chance here. I'm still favoring Orange County, but the width of the game is my biggest concern here.
And for what it's worth, I called Orange County against Oakland, and the numbers weren't. If you only saw the numbers from that game and it finished 3-1, you might think, okay, Orange County played well enough to win. They looked like a team that could really threaten to win the whole thing and do it again like they did a couple of years ago. Before we get to the 3-6, we'll finish with that. San Antonio, Colorado Springs. San Antonio won the meeting in San Antonio on March 25th. 1-1 draw in September at Colorado Springs. It is in San Antonio, but San Antonio just lost their second home playoff game, most likely. And now they're sitting here. You have to think, kind of like Louisville, can you turn it on now? Injuries all year. They felt like the mentality wasn't quite the same. They need to find lightning in a bottle, and Colorado Springs is won 4 out of 5.
The last time that I saw this team play really, really well was the 4-0. Is that 2 weeks ago now? Yes, the 4-0 against Orange County. That's the last time, really down the stretch of like 10 games, that the team has played really, really well. And that's not a good saying, considering over that 10 and that 4-0, that was now 5 games ago.
Well, and are you
concerned for them?
They also turned around, lost to Orange County a week later. They won 4-0, and then they lost 1-0 the same game a week
About
later,
2 weeks
right?
later. That's right.
Even that's unique, right? So, look, it's perfect bulletin board material, and I know Mitch Tanner's going to put this on the wall, but I mean, yeah, I am. Colorado Springs needs 1. They need 3.
Put a shekel on it?
Yeah, no shekels.
No.
Dev, let's hit the final game here. San Diego and Phoenix. San Diego's won 3 out of 4. They're going with the bury the cup motif. They lead the series this year, 1-0-1. But both those were April 1st and earlier. No joke. San Diego officially leads the series 5-4-2. There's a situation that happened in 2020. To put it really simply, the teams don't like each other. And if there's and to be fair for Phoenix, the vast majority of the people that were around in 2020 on the field aren't there anymore.
But Juan
Guerra left and came back, I think.
Yeah. Everybody's still in San Diego.
Yes, exactly. And they're going to sell that thing out, and I don't see it ending yet, even though I think Phoenix may well be the superior team.
Oh, I see. I think I've maintained the entire time that although Phoenix and their firepower, that they were in trouble, a month ago now?
Yep.
Is that what I said?
Yeah.
I think this is San Diego, and I don't think it's close.
Okay.
I smell a 3-1. I think that fire is lit, and they're ready to go.
Favorite upset pick?
I hate saying it because he's sitting in the waiting room. Sac, New Mexico.
For me, it's Switchbacks.
That doesn't surprise me. Notice the jersey, by the way.
Attaboy.
We haven't got to rock it since Summer Showcase, so I thought we'd bring it back.
And they're the Sweet Baby Blues. Before we had to break, couple of quick nods. Albert Dequa, Golden Boot, 20 goals. He outlasts Cal Jennings, who finishes on 19. Jorge Hernandez. Is that a real award, the Golden Playmaker, or you made that up?
No, that's what USL is calling it now. It's not the Golden Ball or the Assist Champion. They're calling it the Golden Playmaker. What are we doing? What are we doing? It's terrible. It is terrible. You know that vote that we didn't have that they tried to give us? I want it even less now.
10 assists, most in the league. Only had 11 the 5 previous years with Los Dos. Has been a perfect fit. Which, go ask Alan Marcina about that being a perfect fit at the start of the year. Like, He heard all of not you, but the royal you. People saying he wasn't a fit. Vitiello wins the Golden Glove. He also won it in Pittsburgh in 2020. And we're going to talk to his coach in just a moment. Mark Briggs, the head coach for number 1 seed in the West, Sacramento, is with us on All Access right after this.
Let's get back to USL All Access on SiriusXM FC.
Welcome back to USL All Access on this Tuesday evening with Devon, Mike. Emmett puts it all together. We told you we'd get the number 1 seeds all handled for this. We've got Sacramento and Pittsburgh both represent. Danny Griffin joins us in about 12 minutes. Mark Briggs from Sacramento, kind enough to join us from the Western Conference regular season winner, Sacramento Republic. Mark, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, mate. Good to be back. Good to hear your voices again.
That's a lie, but we appreciate it.
He's still a very good liar. Love him for that. The best.
Briggsy, let's start with the obvious. You guys finish on a high with Miami, and more importantly, in terms of the overarching situation, number 1 seed in the West, number 2 overall seed, with really good potential to potentially get the final on home ground. How important was it to you and the team to finish as high as you did, top of your conference?
Yeah, it was huge. It was one of the goals that we set ourselves at the start of the year. So to achieve that goal is obviously credit to all the players, all the staff, everyone associated with our clubs. It's not easy to finish at the top of the conference, especially a conference as competitive as the Western Conference with such good teams in it. So credit where credit's due to everyone involved, but that's over and done with now, and nice to get that credit. But at the end of the day, if we lose on Saturday, it's a waste of time finishing first in the conference.
Coach, can we talk about the journey itself for a second? Not just this season, but what you guys have accomplished so far 4 years into this project with you at the helm. So, people that lived under a rock and every single television available to them last season, Sacramento Republic, first lower division team to make it to the Open Cup final since 2008 when it was the Charleston Battery. They get there, you fall just short. You finished 4th that season on 53 points. This year, you finished number 1 in the Western Conference, number 2 overall seed, 11-point jump up to 64. Where are we at right now? Like, what's the good, the bad? I don't want to call it the ugly. We'll call it the not so good. How do you feel about where you're at 4 years into this project?
Yeah, it's been a journey. I think first and foremost, I love working for the club. It's a fantastic club, fantastic people, fantastic fans and city. But it's obviously been a journey to get to where we are now. Last year, I think, was the first step on the platform in regards to implementing the style, the system, the mentality that we wanted at the club, and obviously making the run in the Open Cup really helped to, I guess, exaggerate that and fast forward it a little bit. And then obviously we went into the off season and the approach after falling short in the league, and then obviously a real focus on the Open Cup. We decided to change our approach a little bit and really focusing on the USL and the league. That was our main focus, because it was really difficult to manage the roster, to manage all the emotions, all the things that went with that Open Cup run. So we changed that reset it a little bit and put all our eggs in one basket, and that's obviously USL. And so far we felt like we improved in the off season, and the players we brought in made us better. And now we've put ourselves in a position where we're competing for a championship, obviously with the other teams that made the playoffs. But we feel like we're continuing to build and continuing to grow, which is the most important thing.
With Mark Briggs, the head coach for Sacramento Republic here on USL All Access. His side will see New Mexico on Saturday night in the championship quarterfinals. You'll see the action on ESPN+. Mark, we spoke at the start of the year. It's one thing to put the eggs in the basket of the league as opposed to last year where you had to sort of split your eggs into many baskets. With that in mind, did it take any convincing for the fans, for the players? Because I think the high of it last year, is so hard to recreate and almost impossible to recreate. And yet I think from afar, people, when the Open Cup started, thought, well, Sacramento is, of course, going to want to go do that again. Did it take any convincing to get people around on this?
And it was like that wasn't public. That wasn't, knowledge other than my ears, the owner's ears, and the general manager's ears. And going into the Colorado game, don't get me wrong, we wanted to win. But when you give 2 goals away in 8 minutes, you're not going to beat an MLS team. So we were disappointed with losing that game, but obviously we also knew that we really wanted to hone in on the USL. It was great to be like, look, we were 1 game away from playing Champions League football. So that was, an amazing feat for us to accomplish. But now we've got to do the business in our league at our level. And that's what we're really solely focused on right now.
Coach, you always talk about the balance of your teams, and to me, this year was probably the best depiction we've seen so far. You end the season with the second most shutouts, trailing only the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. Danny Griffin, your goalkeeper, wins the Golden Glove. That's the second time he's done it. Oddly enough, he did it for Bob Lilley and the Pittsburgh Riverhounds in 2020. He sets the club record for most shutouts in the process. But the attacking side, although you were looking for the 9, you dealt with some injuries, you guys still finished tied for the 6th most amount of goals in the league. Balance is certainly there. My question is, do you take more pride on one area of the field than the other?
No, I think you've got to be able to do both sides of the ball if you want to play for Sacramento or play for me. I would say I'm more proud of what the guys have done this year than what we achieved last year. Simply because this year, like for 3 months in the middle of the season, we lost 7 players that would be starters. And we really stretched our squad. But we somehow remained in first place. And I think the whole squad this year has really had an impact on what we've done to remain in first place, because it wasn't easy losing, Lee Desmond, Roro, Sebastian Herrera, Jack Kerr, Luis Felipe, players that are really important to what we're trying to do for long periods. But our squad really stepped up and really showed that they can hang as well. And that allowed us to keep momentum and stay in the position that we ended up being in.
Let's talk about that position. You guys finished the season statistically on a tear. You have 5 wins in your final 7 matches, only 1 loss in there. Now, you can't control what your schedule is at the end of the season. But, and here's the asterisk, there's only 1 win versus a playoff team, and it was El Paso Locomotive. In that stretch, you guys also drew New Mexico United. There was a loss, the 1 loss that we talked about, to Colorado Springs. So my question to you would be, within those 7, 3 against playoff teams, you basically go 1-1-1. How would you describe your team's current form?
I asked them on Saturday night for the complete performance. And what I meant by that was a clean sheet and goals. Now, we only scored 1 goal, but I was happy with our attacking play, and we could have had 5 or 6. But we had the mentality and the hunger and the desire to keep the clean sheet again. And I think once we have that, I'm not worried about us scoring goals. So I'm happy with my group, confident in my group. Over 34 games, we were the best team in our conference, which is something to give everybody belief going into a playoff run. I think there's nobody for us to be fearful of, but there are good teams and anything can happen in the playoffs. So we've got to make sure that our guys are prepared for a team that's on a bit of a tear themselves, New Mexico. They've played 4 playoff games, essentially, the last 4 games, because they've had to win all of them, which they've done. So they've got great players. They've got a good squad. Eric's a good coach. So, we're under no illusions that this is going to be a really, really difficult game, that we've got to be at our best to get through.
Let's finish there. 2 previous interactions with them this season. back in July, you lost at their place 3-0. I already talked about that in the first segment, how to me that was a throwaway game for you guys because you were battered and bruised, nowhere near your starting 11. Eric had just taken over, injected life into them, but there was the 0-0 draw about a month's time ago. Is there something that if you were describing this game to the fans, you would look and push your finger on that button and say, in order for us to have success in this game and continue this dream of putting another star above the crest, we have to do X?
I wouldn't say there's one specific thing. Look, I think Eric's done a fantastic job since taking over, and he's obviously turned the corner with a group. And for me, New Mexico have always had a good squad with quality players. So to get that group together and to get them confident and all pulling in one direction is a good thing. But we're at home, and that gives us obviously confidence to play in front of our fans. And I think we've got to be on the front foot, and we've got to take the game and play with freedom and confidence. And then obviously in these playoff games, as in cup games, you need that little bit of fortune, you need that little bit of luck, and hopefully our season's allowed us to get those lucky bounces, those lucky touches to go our direction. But I think we've got to be confident. We've got to turn up ready to go, and then we'll see where it lands.
Mark, close with this. Devon and I are in Sacramento for some reason on November 11th. Where should we go to dinner?
I'll look after you, mate. No worries.
Yeah, come on, man. You know it's going to be at Casa Briggs, baby.
Oh,
There
wow.
you go. I'll take you to a nice place, Mike.
Appreciate it, pal. Mark, congratulations on all the success. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, guys. Always good to talk to you.
That is Sacramento head coach Mark Briggs joining us here on All Access. If you missed any part of the interview, you can catch it on the USL Championship YouTube page tomorrow, or you can catch it on the SiriusXM app at the conclusion of the show. Danny Griffin from Pittsburgh joins us on the other side of the break here on SiriusXM FC.
Let's get back to USL All Access on SiriusXM FC.
Welcome back to USL All Access on SiriusXM FC. Emmett is still putting it together. Devon is still falling apart. Mike as well. We mentioned Mark Briggs was on previously. You missed any part of that interview. It's available on the SiriusXM app. It's now also available on the USL Championships YouTube page, so you don't have to miss an episode the rest of the way. Pittsburgh is the Players' Shield winner. They are out and out the best team in the league points-wise. They go in with a chance to host all the way through the USL Championship postseason presented by Hisense. And the big reason why was the return of Danny Griffin earlier this year, and Danny's kind enough to join us on the show tonight. Danny, welcome to the playoffs. Welcome to the show. This is long overdue.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for having me.
You guys get the host in Pittsburgh, and, mid-November we could be talking about snow. But regardless of weather condition, try and describe why Highmark is such a unique or a valuable home field advantage that you guys have now earned the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, Highmark is big. We turned it into a fort. Obviously, Fort Highmark is what we say. And then obviously, yeah, every time driving past the stadium, the guys love it, the view, everything. I know people that come into town and just have been there for the first time. I have my family come in, and everyone always talks about the views and stuff. But obviously, us being there and what we've done at home this year, and what the fans have done year in and out, they've always been there from the beginning. So just to see how much the atmosphere has grown and what they create and what they give us, that extra lift on and off the field is amazing. So obviously, every time we drive past the stadium, I'm even still being here 4 years, I'm always in awe with the stadium. And yeah, every time I go by, I ask my girlfriend, I'm like, yeah, that's La Casa, that's home. So yeah, it's a big important part to us. And then obviously to have that here and have those home games, it's immense for us.
Have you been on a boat yet?
I have been on one of those boats. It's actually right in Station Square by the stadium. So I've gone on with my family and done one of those tours.
Love it.
Dude, I was on the lift last time I was there for the Pitt game back in August, and I wanted to get on a boat. And let's just say that it was the wrong time of day for me to challenge that obstacle. The lift was great, though. Dude, the lift was great. I went all the way to the top, and there were 2 separate restaurants I wanted to go to, and both were closed. Like,
okay.
What goes on a Sunday, man? There's nothing going on except football.
They're both closed.
Both
Yeah,
closed.
it's cool up there too. Obviously, you see the view from up there, and then yeah, the incline is just a different way of transportation up there. You can leave your car parked down at the bottom, but yeah, that's cool.
So, Danny, you talked about being there for 4 years. Let's talk about that journey for a second. Massachusetts guy, you go play college ball at Providence. You end up in Pittsburgh, and you're there for 3 consecutive seasons. And then you had an opportunity placed in front of you. You took off to Huntsville City in MLS Next Pro. You have 5 games there, and then you come back home. Can you just kind of put us in your shoes on how you ended up back with the Riverhounds? What led you down south, and then the chance to come back to the Northeast again?
Yeah, I know. So the year previous to this past year, I went. I trialed with Nashville's MLS team, and then so part of that this year was I'd go to preseason with the first team again, and then obviously try and make a roster spot, and then if not, then I'd play some games, see development with the Huntsville team. And as soon as I kind of saw how things shaped up, I mean, my whole intentions, obviously, throughout the whole time, I always stayed in touch with Coach Bob and all the guys. It was actually like probably every weekend or every 2 weekends I'd fly because my girlfriend was still finishing up school here. I was flying back, so I actually was there in the stadium to watch when Pittsburgh played the Bobcats in the Open Cup, and I went to a preseason game as well. So I did come back like every 2 weeks. So I know guys knew that once I saw how things shaped up there, that I wanted to ultimately be back in the USL, and I wanted to be back in Pittsburgh. I know the coaches throughout my 3 years have always given me the opportunity, and the ownership, the coach and staff, everyone has given me the opportunity. And if I can reach the MLS, they've always given that opportunity, left that door open, and ultimately, they've helped me develop. And I've always wanted to, if I'm in the USL, I always want to be here in Pittsburgh. So once I communicated that with Coach after those first 5 games, I wanted to come back, and obviously was able to make that move happen really quickly.
Danny, I was going to phrase this question differently, but I'm going to combine 2 and then lead you down a path. Mike talked about winning the Supporter Shield, or excuse me, the Players Shield, as we've named it now. Right? It's the best team throughout the 34-game season USL Championship. You guys also had 13 home wins, only 1 loss, 13 wins, tying a USL Championship record for most wins in a single season. You actually were only 1 point behind the all-time mark. Taking that, my initial question was, did you ever dream that you guys could have achieved this? Being a player, that's what the dream always is, right? It's, hey, we want to go win a title. We want to win a regular season. So I phrased the question to you this way. At what point in time did you and the guys in that locker room look around and go, this is very realistic. We are in the driver's seat. Let's keep pushing and get it over the line?
Yeah, I think in terms of we've always had, even here in Pittsburgh, we've always had good teams. I think when I really noticed it in that Open Cup run, I came back, we played Monterey. Then my second game was against the Revolution. We beat the Revolution 1-0 at Gillette. And then we went on a run of form, and the level never dropped when, sometimes you go on an Open Cup run and, there's fatigue or anything. I think with the quality our group had and the depth, and we were pulling together wins. We went 13 unbeaten, another win at home against Columbus. The support from the fans, you saw the whiteout and everything at our stadium. I think around that time is when we were like, okay, like we're not dropping points. We have a team that can do something very special this year. The front office are doing special things to help get the fans out, and what the buzz around the city right now with the team and everything. So I think just from the front office to the team to all the people supporting us, we realized that we can do something special this year. And to have the Supporter Shield, and what we've talked about a lot is that obviously the job's not done. Now we're going 4 games of, obviously take it 1 game at a time, but 4 games to keep the championship here in Pittsburgh.
Danny Griffin is with us from Pittsburgh Riverhounds, number 1 overall seed in the upcoming USL Championship Playoffs. You mentioned Coach Bob, and I'd be remiss not to ask you not only about sort of your relationship with him, but also with the concept of Lilley ball as it is. We've had people on here come in and say this is an amazing 1-year apprenticeship, and that's enough. We've had other people who've really tied a lot of their career along with Bob, and at this point, you've started to get to that point where you've created quite a long-term relationship with the club and playing for this particular coach. Try and describe Bob from your perspective.
He's a pure, passionate, 100% all in on the game, which is something I've always wanted in a coach. You know, if I think about like coaches I had in academy where you know they gave me a place to, like, my academy back home was like a second home to me. I spent almost all my time there. You know, coaches I've had in college. Since I got here to Pittsburgh, I've never had a coach where I learned as much as I did, as quickly as I did. Always teaching me something, no matter what. Year after year, he's finding a new challenge for me. When I first came back, even this season, I was playing a little bit higher than what I've usually played the year before. But when I first came into Pittsburgh, I did start off my first couple games as like an attacking mid role. But yeah, I've transitioned to be even deeper. So I think coach, knowing what I've played many different positions for coach, whether it was out back, center back, wing back, different positions in the midfield, different tactics, different roles. But yeah, he's always pushed me, and I've just done my best to be a sponge and learn everything I can from him. So yeah, I'm grateful for him and all the challenges he's presented for me, and the belief he has in me, and the trust he has in me and the guys. So obviously, he's a big reason of why I wanted to continue being in Pittsburgh, and why I've said that if I didn't have an MLS opportunity, which I know he would want for me and the ownership would want for me, that if I'm in the USL, I want to be here in Pittsburgh playing for him.
4 seasons, bud. You guys finished 5th overall in 2020. Obviously, the setup for the seasons in 20 and 21 were a little bit different. But 5th in 2020, 3rd in 21. You guys finished 5th last season. You're the Players' Shield winners this year. In your mind, or if I had to poll the guys in the locker room, is there one thing, like one major difference that stands out from all of those squads?
I think the biggest thing for us would be the amount of depth we have. I mean, like I said, all those years we've had great players, great team guys. But there is an extra special thing to this group that we have, and it's obviously the quality in the group. You see the training competition. Every training session feels like a game for us. And when we do 11s, whether it's starters versus guys that aren't usually starting, it feels like a 11v11 game, and there's competition, but there's also pushing each other, and the collectiveness of this group and the mentality of the next man stepping up. Guys have played, every single guy has contributed and played huge roles in our success this year, whether it's coming off the bench, whether guys that aren't even traveling. Like we know what they do for us day in and day out, and some of the hardest workers on this team. So yeah, it's definitely a credit to the whole locker room that we have, the coaching staff, and yeah, the belief that we have in this group and each other. And you know, everyone's ready to work for each other and fight for each other, and that's the biggest thing that's carried us this season.
Devon has one critical final question.
Yeah, I got to get it in, and you know how I feel about this, man, but I got to know, how much do you attribute you and your team's success, the overall quality of play, to the removal of the man bun a little while back?
Yeah, even my girlfriend says I'm not going to back out, so I got.
Oh man,
that's how it always ends. Sorry, Danny.
Me too, man. Me too.
Well, man bun or not, the Riverhounds are the #1 overall seed, and Danny's the engine, and a big reason why. We appreciate the time and you stopping by.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me. All the best.
You missed any part of the interview with Danny, you can check it out on the USL Championship YouTube page tomorrow. You can catch it on the SiriusXM app or as it re-airs as well. Dev, you learn anything in this show?
I learned that off air, sorry I have to share with everybody, Danny Griffin had cornrows at one point in time. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I learned Mark Briggs thinks he can cook us a heck of a dinner.
I'm ready.
For Devon, Emmett, Mike, we'll talk to you next Tuesday. Enjoy the first round of the playoffs on Saturday and Sunday on ESPN+. So long for now.
This is USL All Access. If you missed any portion of the program, listen back anytime on the SiriusXM app.